I mean, look at this. Grazed by goats. Unquestionably taller new growth than the ungrazed area. And look at this disaster over here. And by the way, the vernal pools, goat poop soup. This is so much worse than the ungrazed area. Explain that to me. Come on. I know some of you are talking trash. Oh, what a beautiful native oak tree. Oh, wait. Oops. Never mind. But at least the goats got it. Oh, oops. Never mind. I understand that my message is maybe getting redundant, maybe annoying, but here's nature teaching you something. This is the new generation, this green stuff, just since the goats left. And it's taller, at best, the same height as where they didn't graze. And you still have this. I just got back from my morning jog and felt like talking about passive recovery. I guess technically it's known as passive restoration. I think of it as recovery. It's restoration and recovery. But anyway, I wondered how many people were familiar with the concept, because while I was out on my jog with this guy, I also incorporated, and this is my routine, checking in on the plants and documenting what's happening. That was my morning, and I was noticing that once again, the area where there is passive recovery looks better than the area that was grazed by the goats. This means two locations with the same plants, right across from each other. The area where they graze the goats, every single year, the weeds are already taller. Let me give you a time frame. Up here where I'm talking about, they finished at like October 31st, maybe a little bit into the first week in November. And shortly after that started the rainy season, and everything starts growing. Now we are in January, and the grasses that the goats grazed, shortened, I should say, a couple of months ago, are already back. Now, not only are they back, they are taller, I'm not joking, taller than the grasses where they didn't graze the goats. This is called passive recovery. It doesn't happen overnight, but thank God there are a couple of plots of land where they did an urban forestry project and then forgot to reintroduce the goats after that urban forestry project. Otherwise, I would have absolutely no comparisons in this experiment, because just about every bit of public land in California is grazed by goats. So there's no way to actually compare what's more successful than the other one, thanks to the fact that the goat grazing program is making an absolute killing and grazing around the clock all year. The need for goats is a self-fulfilling prophecy caused by the goats. How many years are you allowing for the goats to actually make real progress, not just temporarily shorten something and not even do a very good job of that, but enough to where humans with their expertise on fire say, oh, that's how much it needs to be reduced for us not to be in danger. Okay, so what was I talking about? Control, experiments to test on that control when you have a hypothesis, and the lack of controls because everything's being grazed. So even if I didn't have these experimental plots to use as evidence, what about the fact that the problem never lessens? How about the fact that we never are heading toward long-term progress? That doesn't bother anyone. Have you noticed that these goat grazing programs that say it's a multi-year project have no deadline? No deadline. They just put up the same signs every year that say it's a multi-year program and keep grazing, and you keep paying for it. They're fattening their animals on public land while also being paid for that. So you're covering their expenses and paying them because you think that this is a wonderful service for you, and you haven't bothered to look at the fact that they don't make any progress. It comes back denser and worse every year. And maybe you're one of the people on this channel that like hates on wildlife and thinks people like me are crazy for actually wanting to preserve some nature. But goodbye wildlife, goodbye native plants, increase in the invasive annual fire fuel that comes back every year. Is it possible that there's a different method? Is there anything that might work better? The most intelligent species isn't even getting that far. They've just accepted, oh, look at that. It looks like wildlife in my mind, since I've never seen any wildlife, since there aren't any left. But look, it's animals eating. That must be natural. It's so progressive. I can't believe we call ourselves the most intelligent species. That really stretched your minds on the fire fuel problem. Let's mow or graze. Okay, let me get to the point before I lose everybody. Thanks to these experimental plots, in addition to the fact that where they graze goats gets worse every year, and they don't even effectively get rid of the fire fuel, I also have comparison plots where they stopped grazing goats, and just through passive recovery, the situation has improved. What is passive recovery? Passive recovery is humans remove themselves from the equation. No machines, no human hand pulling, no livestock. Just see what nature can do when you back off. And this is what's happening here. The funny part of it is that it's not actually intentional. And the reason that these study plots exist is a funny story, because goat grazing is so damaging to saplings and other native plants that are down on their level that when they do an urban forestry project, they actually fence the goats out of it so the goats don't kill everything that they planted. So years go by and these trees actually grow, and nobody ever reintroduces the goats to these areas. Thank God. Because everywhere that I try to do rewilding projects, but the goats come through annually, all my work is destroyed. That should tell you something by itself. But I also have this evidence in which, right across from each other, where the goats grazed is already as tall or taller than the annual fire fuel, which is green. Let's not get confused. We're still talking about fire fuel. It's just biofuel in its green stage before it grows tall really fast and becomes fire fuel again. That situation is better where they haven't been grazing goats. Let me provide some on-location context. I am currently going through an urban forestry project on my way to the other spot that they don't graze the goats anymore. I call this the incompetent forest because this is the largest species of oak tree planted right next to each other, immediately stunting all of their growth. My God, I can't even get through these. But nevertheless, we have an opportunity to look at the invasive weed situation here, which is better than right over there where they graze the goats. But some people might say, oh, well, the trees change the situation. So we're going to the other spot. Okay, so I got through the incompetent forest and I come into this little area right here. You'll recognize this on the satellite map. Okay, so you see this is open, so you can no longer possibly blame the trees. This is getting plenty of sun, plenty of rain, plenty of whatever, and here's the height of what are indeed non-natives, but this is what the situation is where they haven't grazed goats in years. Now, we're gonna go over there to where they did graze the goats. In fact, about the tallest thing happening over in this area that doesn't get grazed is the growth of a native wavy leaf soap plant, a good thing. Here's some evidence that this area is indeed an urban forestry project, because they never bothered removing these cones. Yesterday, I was doing some hand pulling here for an experimental spot, which would be an example of active restoration. The rest of it, I'm just letting it kind of do its own thing so that we have an ongoing experimental area to compare and contrast. But anyway, here's more evidence. This is the irrigation system that they put in for the urban forestry project. So here we are, over to where the goats did graze. I'll show you this spot on the map. You see the amount of new grass, the new invasives, the new non-native annuals, and you also have the old. You have the failure of the goats, and there's a lot of it. At best, you could say that the ungrazed area is equal in the height. But we don't have all this. How's that possible? How's an area where they haven't grazed the goats in years not have this? This just finished getting grazed approximately 2 months ago. And by the way, look at this on the horizon. Your visual reminder of a spot that they won't graze the goats to protect the trees that they planted. Meanwhile, you have these denuded natives with no leaves on their lower branches. Leaves up here, nothing down here, because they fed native trees to the goats. And this was your big victory right here. This is your big victory. I mean, look at this. Grazed by goats. Unquestionably taller new growth than the ungrazed area. And look at this disaster over here. And by the way, the vernal pools, goat poop soup. This is so much worse than the ungrazed area. Explain that to me. Come on, I know some of you are talking trash. Explain it to me. And again, look no further than right there for additional proof that the goats were here. There's the dead zone that they can get on their hind legs and denude natives. And there's where they can't reach. What do you know? Goat poop. Some of you are senselessly actually praising the fact that the goats denude the beneficial native plants, the habitat for wildlife, because, oh, it's fuel, it's biofuel. Yeah, okay, so the green good stuff can go while the goats fail to get rid of this. Gotcha. So you can get stuck arguing for a while about how significant this is or isn't, as if any of you actually know what the lethal amount of biofuel is. What you really need to focus on is that the spot where they aren't grazing goats anymore, by itself, without any help other than the help of getting out of nature's way, is 100 times better than this. Oh, what a beautiful native oak tree. Oh, wait, oops, never mind. But at least the goats got it. Oh, oops, never mind. I understand that my message is maybe getting redundant, maybe annoying, but here's nature teaching you something. This is the new generation, this green stuff, just since the goats left. And it's taller, at best, the same height as where they didn't graze. And you still have this. And then you have the stripped bare native trees. This place is worse on every level than the ungrazed area. Whether you're talking about the old growth that miraculously isn't in the ungrazed area anymore, just through self-healing. That's why I call it passive recovery instead of passive restoration, but you know, either one I think applies. And then the new growth situation is worse here as well. And the native plant damage is obviously worse here. My God. Look at this clown show. Money well spent, everyone. Money well spent. And look how easy that is to pull during this time of year. If you just get a team out here to do this intelligently. People that come on this channel and like just start hurling insults at me and also happen to be making money in the livestock industry, including people coming on here who have their own goat herding programs. What is it, Upton Sinclair, who says it's difficult for a man to learn if his means of income requires him not learning? That's not the quote, but that's as good as I'm going to do on the spot. This guy actually confessed that despite the fact that he has a shitload of goats grazing his property, the fires come anyway. Like you just explained that this program is worthless, but you're making money off of it. So good for you. Why would you ever tell the truth? Come on here and rip on me, somebody that's trying to wake people up to the fact that people like you are con artists. You actually don't care about the fact that you're taking advantage of a situation that's based in an irrational amount of fire fuel. I don't know if it's irrational because LA's burning as we speak. There's a problem. There's a problem, but our approach to solving that problem is dumb. Dumb. And people are taking advantage of the fear and profiting off of a program that makes the problem worse. Show me one area where the cheatgrass, the kindling for fire fuel, isn't getting worse, where they're grazing. Cattle, goats, whatever. Now we get into some variety. We have the stalks of the Italian thistle, the yellow star thistle, mixed into the annual grasses. Stripped saplings turned into firewood, basically, right next to old fire fuel the goats didn't get rid of, and the next generation that's already back. Stripped sapling, old fire fuel, new fire fuel. Stripped sapling, old fire fuel, new fire fuel. Is this sinking in, people? There's more of that Italian thistle. Yellow star thistle. Unfortunately, I can keep going on and on and on and on through the entire walk out here. This is an invasive thistle. But guess what? Now the native plants look just like that thanks to the goat grazing program. Waging war on leaves every waking hour of the day, chopping down trees, feeding nature to goats, the human solution to the fire problem. Stay there. This crap left behind by the goats is way bigger than he is. There you go. Leave the kindling next to the actual wood. Goat grazed. Goat grazed. This is a great example of sacrificing the natives and then protecting the urban forestry project. This video is going to get too long, but some of you might be wondering what the weed situation is where they don't allow the goats anymore. And it's strangely similar to where the goats grazed. But the humans will come through here with weed whackers. That's their solution. They will come through with weed whackers to reduce the height of the weeds. They won't haul it out. They just chop it up and leave it on the ground. But, we're really scared of fire fuel. So scared we leave it behind. where you don't have the weeds is where they put so much poison slash herbicide on the ground that not much will grow, but you do have some things like this broadleaf fillery will still grow. But yeah, here's where this is inside of the urban forestry project, the new one, and this is the situation. Amazingly, not that different than where the goats finished grazing 2 months ago. My point is, the only place things are improving is where there's passive restoration, passive recovery, humans getting out of the way. But y'all just feel better spending money on stupid shit. I think it's a human control issue. You just can't back off. You can't let nature do nature's thing. Or it's the dirty contracts. It's the money being made by people who are taking advantage of your ignorance.